Hello, and welcome back to the Fae Banner Review, where we talk about the same thing we talked about several months ago. I'm already getting a sense of deja vu. Today, we have a brand new Not Summer banner featuring characters featured on that theme. Except for Ike, but he'll probably get one sooner or later anyway. And as per tradition, I will be using this coveted line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day to rank the brand new seasonal banner, as well as the circle graph that may or may not be a circle at the end of the day alongside it. Today's rankings will be based on how creative this banner is, and if you could hit that like and subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. First up, we have Ike, and if you know Ike, you sure know his playstyle. We've only seen it for the past several years, but I'm here to tell you that for the 7th time ever, this Ike does the exact same thing as his previous ult from less than a year ago. Just like last time, I'm going to keep this brief and compare the two directly really quick. For the weapons, this Ike replaces Innate Bulwark and the Radiant Hero and Duel bonuses for start of turn +2 attack defense res great talent to himself and allies within 3 rows and columns, and he gives out 4 more attack defense res great talent to himself and allies after attacking in combat. And for the specials, the only differences comes with Aether's Route granting Radiant Hero and the 50% damage reduction piercing bonuses at the start of the phase, as well as Null Guard during combat. Oh, and this Ike doesn't have a Gale Force button. Very unique and interesting Ike ult, ain't it? The main difference is just the great talent, really. He gives out a bunch of it and it can stack really fast, which is nice given the role he's in. You can't blindly swing onto him without Hardy Bearing, since it'll just make him tankier, and given that Harmonic Brave Ike is super tanky as is, without Hardy Bearing, this one should do the job slightly better. I will say though, I think I prefer having the Harmonic button over the Great Talent stacking, but it is a good trade-off. That said, it really is just Harmonic Brave Ike, but with Great Talent, which is about as inspirational as they could get with a unit like him, I guess. You probably won't need him if you own Harmonic Brave Ike. And by if, I mean you do, because we got him for free. Voting Gauntlet events, am I right? What a great system. But yeah, the differences really do feel minimal though, because they are. I don't think you really need to grab him unless you want his fodder. And speaking of which, Ike also comes with a bunch of inheritable skills, including Rise Above 4, Patience, and a brand new, sorta new, C skill and Defense Res Tenet Hone, which grants Bulwark to themselves, 6 visible defense and res, as well as penalty neutralization to themselves and allies within 2 spaces. It grants upwards of 6 defense and res during combat, 5 true damage, and 5 first hits true damage reduction. Wow, I really love this skill. And yeah, Tenet Hone is cool too, I guess, I don't really know. It's Faith, but newer, which is fine. It has more effects and stat swings, so it is functional enough. Bulwark is nice to have, especially with all the styles going around. It's not bad whatsoever. And as for Ike's important fodder, Rise Above, aka the only A skill that matters for infantries and armors right now. Thank you for not locking it to Roy forever. And Patience is still great for the easy potent follow 100. It also pairs well with the copy of Patience we got for free a few months ago. What's one more of those lying around? But yeah, it's really Rise Above and the new C skill for the most part. If the new C skill really appeals to you, then I say skip it and go for Instruct instead. That C skill is still absurdly strong.
Let's rumble.
And other than that, that sure is Ike. It's Harmonic Brave Ike, but again, so he's probably fine. The last one still functions well enough, so a slightly newer version should also work. I've said it before numerous times, but if they're going to spam the same characters over and over again, can they at least make them distinct? What good is another infantry tank Ike if they're barely going to innovate on the previous iteration? I know why they do it though, it's very easy to reprint, but it is really boring. Thankfully, the next unit will be barely any different. Next, there's Tharja, and instead of being a green tome flyer, she's an infantry colorless tome. Ooh, it really does make the world of difference, doesn't it? You may think I'm joking, but it does somewhat come up. But hopefully, that's not the only notable change here. Let's see. Tharja comes with Dour Baton, which is a slaying colorless tome that grants herself and allies within 3 spaces or allies on the map with Anathema active Spectrum stats, Duel, and upwards of 3 special jumps before their first attack based on the amount of allies on the map with Anathema active. It grants Tharja a bunch of attack during combat based on her special cooldown count, 15 true damage reduction, null follow-up, and potent follow 100%. She also comes with a PRFA skill in Long Dead, which grants Visible Spectrum 9. It grants Anathema, Pulse Follow, and True Charge to herself and allies within 3 spaces at the start of the player phase or enemy phase. It grants upwards of 9 true damage during combat, 60% pierceable damage reduction, 9 true damage reduction, nullifies the foe's specials, and restores 9 HP to herself after combat. It's a tuned Tharja, but newer. It's certainly more newer than Ike though, that's for sure. The weapon is at least different enough from her last ult. Somewhat. Dour Baton grants Dolan up to 3 special jumps for herself and allies instead of penalty neutralization and true damage. It also grants Tharja a bunch of attack bonuses instead of true damage, as well as potent instead of damage reduction piercing. It's not a lot different, but at least it has notable changes unlike her A skill. Long Dead is just the same thing except modern bonuses instead of special jumps, which were removed to the weapon, and it restores HP after combat, which was moved from the weapon, so it's really just the bonuses. Granting True Charge instead of Charge is nice for anti-warp mechanics, but it's not a massive change. At least they put Pulse Follow in it, which means she could be good special charging support for allies. Between that and the amount from her weapon, you can give out a lot of special jumps. Even so, it's still more or less Tharja for the most part. I think the main difference comes down to her movement type and her lack of attune status. The previous one could use all sorts of flyer skills and echo skills, while this one can't. However, this one seems way more combat leaning because of the potent effect and attack bonuses. Although, to be honest, attuned was already really good in combat as is because she could shut down specials. I don't know how much of an improvement there is here besides the potent, and that gets put on anything with a pulse. Or I guess a pulse follow con because it's her C skill. You get it? Tharja also comes with Comet, Speed Rest Unrest, and a brand new, kinda new, C skill in Pulse Follow Con, which inflicts exposure and discord on foes within 3 rows and columns if they have less res in the unit at the start of the player phase or enemy phase. It grants a bunch of attack and speed during combat based on the special cooldown count, 5 first hits true damage reduction, and 2 special jumps before their first follow-up attack. That sure is another pulse skill. It's good, yeah. It's not particularly interesting, but it works, which is all it needs to do. You're probably replacing it for Instruct. Besides that, Comet is another special with damage reduction in it, so that's nice, and Speed Rest Unrest is the newer Havoc, which is also good. It's mostly res-leaning fodder, but it does the job. And other than that, that sure is Tharja. It's a tuned Tharja, but newer, and infantry-er. I will say that unlike Ike, the slight changes here are significant enough to where you'd probably run this Tharja over the previous one. True Charge is really great because of the innate pass, which allows units to move through vert terrain and anti-warp mechanics. Her special jump support is also really nice since she can let units spam specials really easily. You do lose out on some flyer perks, but I think the trade-off is a lot better for her combatively and supportively. It's still the bare minimum, but at least it's more apparent, which is a low bar, but they did cross it. So, adequate job, Faye. You sure did something, debatably.
Huzzah!
And then there's Eikthynir, and he's the demote this time around. I didn't mention it yet, but it is really cool when we get new seasonal themes. I welcome fresh ideas. It would be nice to get fresh unit choices alongside it, though. Now, do I believe they replaced Summer 2 just to give Eikthynir another alt? Well, some people would say yes. I am some people. It is Eikthynir though, he clearly sells, but is he any more interesting than his last ult? Surprisingly, yes. Let's see. Eikthynir comes with Chiseled Antler, which is a slaying Canto Distance beast stun that grants 6 visible attack and defense, Drain Cancel, and Null Panic to himself and allies within 2 spaces at the start of the phase. It grants further visible buffs by 3 points. He gets 16 attack, defense, and res during combat, true damage based on the highest total bonuses between himself and allies within 3 rows and columns, 50% of that as true damage reduction. He also gets 50% damage reduction piercing during combat, and the beast cavalry effects. He also comes with a PRF special in Mighty Growl, which is a 5 cooldown special that boosts his damage by his entire defense stat. It grants himself and allies within 3 rows and columns bonus doubler and special jumps based on how many visible bonuses they have active. Eikthynir debuffs 7 attack and defense during combat if he has more attack at the start of combat, another 7 if he has more defense. He gets 40% special damage reduction and a guaranteed follow-up attack. Well, I'll give them this. It's not Brave Eikthynir, but newer. It's more reminiscent of his summer version, but even then it's not as comparable. The weapon does the same stuff that every Eikthynir has been doing since forever. Raising the cap on visible bonuses will never not be good to have, and if you could get someone to give out speed and res, then he could become even better support, especially with his special giving out drive bonus doubler and special jumps based on visible bonuses. He's really not too shabby on that end. He is a really nice stat stick support unit, even when including Drain Cancel, which 99% of the time is just going to be a status that grants Spectrum 4 during combat. It's a very specific bonus that I'm surprised they give him, but it's still fine for what it is. And as for his combat capabilities, he seems to be really okay, I guess. He has a bunch of damage reduction between his Beast Cav status, the true damage reduction based on bonuses, and the special damage reduction, so he should be able to take a hit. Not to mention, he could debuff a fair bit of attack and defense from his special, so he could probably get around Iron Fighter units too. Besides that though, it's more or less what every unit has been doing for the most part. Stats, true damage, damage reduction, piercing, yada yada yada. I don't think he's outright amazing in either role per se, but I'd hardly call him bad. He's more than functional, and that's all I could really ask for in any unit. Not to mention, he's a demote, which makes him incredibly cheap to get and invest into. You can do so much worse than him. He also comes with Attack Defense Clash 3 and Preempt Screech. Hey, that's pretty good. Preempt Screech is Beast Locked Omnifeud, which is really strong. You can put this on all sorts of beast units, including... Actually, I don't know how many people are building beast units, let alone the ones that already come pre-built. It's still a really good skill, but it's very specialized, so limitations ensue. Thankfully, you could pass around Attack Defense Clash to many more units if you don't have any beast units to build. Isn't that nice?
Guide me.
And other than that, that sure is Eikthynir. It's the first unit in a long time where I don't feel a sense of deja vu. He has nice support, decent combat capabilities, and he's a demote. If you want a cheap copy for stat support and getting around Essence Drain, then he's not that bad of an option whatsoever. And if you don't, then And finally, we have female Byleth and female Corrin, and they're the harmonic this time around. It's crazy, but I think this is her first alt in years, which is weird to think about. Before this, it was Fallen, which was a ways back, so it's cool to see her get something new. And with it being so long since her previous alt, she should be really unique and interesting as a unit, right? Nope. Let's see. They come with Guiding Lance, which is a slaying distant counter weapon that grants 2 attack and speed great talent to themselves and allies within 3 rows and columns at the start of the turn. It grants 4 more after attacking in combat. It grants Spectrum 15 during combat, 25 true damage, 15 true damage reduction, an additional 15 true damage reduction when a foe's special goes off, Null Guard, and they could use Sublime Heaven style, which grants 1 special jump before their first attack, 20% attack-based true damage if their special goes off against a dragon or beast unit, and they can attack from 3 spaces away once every 2 turns. They also come with a PRF special and Divine Rumble, which is a 5 cooldown special that boosts their damage by their entire speed stat. It has speed-based Vantage. It grants 80% special damage reduction on the first attacks when initiating or during the first enemy phase, otherwise 40%. It grants 40% on follow-up attacks, Opponent Follow 100%, and it grants Dodge, Times Pulse, and Professor's Guidance skill at the start of the turn. Professor's Guidance skill grants 2 times SP after combat or after using an assist. It grants Spectrum 5 during combat, 7 true damage and true damage reduction, and a special jump after combat, on top of a harmonic button that grants Resonance Blades and shields to themselves and anyone from Fates in 3 houses, and applies Divine Vein Vert within 3 spaces for 2 turns. Well, I'll give them this. It's definitely Brave Byleth, but newer. At least there's a remnants of female Byleth in there since it has speed-based Vantage. It's at least more interesting than taking a tank role, especially since her enemy phase gets weakened in subsequent combats. She's going to be annoyingly tanky regardless though, but now she has another out if she can't rely on her damage reduction to survive, which is a cool enough distinction. Besides that though, it really is just a mixture of Brave male Byleth and Fallen male Byleth, who was already derivative of Brave. It has the same 80% damage reduction gimmick, and the style was copy and pasted over. At the very least, her weapon does trade out drive stat support for drive stat support. It's great talent, attack, and speed instead of Spectrum 5 and penalty neutralization, which is different enough, I guess. The only other change comes with her bonuses, since she gives out dodge instead of no follow-up, and the professor bonus, which is also slightly changed. It grants true damage and true damage reduction instead of the special damage reduction effect, which is fine. It'll come up more often at least. But besides that, it really is just the same stuff we've seen already. They're really strong, but there's nothing really new going on here for the most part. At least she has a button, but that really only matters in summoner duels. That could be nice for playing a bit more defensively. Besides that though, it really is just Brave Male Byleth both in unit and fodder. And speaking of derivative, they also come with Swift Spectre, Attack Speed 10 at Hone, and a brand new, not really new, B skill Encounter Dull, which is just Null Sea Avoid with built-in Dull. Daring today, aren't we? It is a good skill, but it's really just Null Sea Avoid, but newer. It's very uninspired, but I shouldn't act surprised about it at this point. Besides that, there's Attack Speed 10 at Hone and Swift Spectre. She's got a lot of perfectly good skills to pass around. You will still be using Rise Above and Instruct in the end.
Leave it to me.
And other than that, that sure is Byleth and Corrin. It really is just another take on Brave Byleth and Fallen Byleth. The Vantage part is cool at least. It lets her stand out a bit more comparatively. She's also good by proxy of being that derivative, but it really isn't the most exciting thing either. Still, I don't think you could go wrong with a copy whatsoever, especially if you don't own the former two units. And then there's the free stuff, and who doesn't like free stuff? This time around we have Summer Ivy, and she sure has skills, ? Stillwater, Sabotage, Attack Res, and Soaring Guidance. It's a lot of nothing for the most part, but that's to be expected. You could probably use Soaring Guidance for budget purposes, but we also have Hold Guide in the codes, which is strictly better. I'll give Ivy this though. It's certainly not Spring Bernadetta levels of bad at least. It's a low bar, but they continue to reduce my standards every time. And as for the Sacred Seals, we have Lull Attack Defense and Rouse Attack Res. Gee, thanks. Lull Attack Defense is fine, but Rouse is just bad. This really isn't a great batch of freebies this time around. And that's about it this time around. Yep. Okay, bye. And now that we've gone over the brand new not summer units, I think it's time we rank the banner on the line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day. And would you look at that? The brand new seasonal banner has earned a 2 out of 10. On the line graph, and based on my understanding of the banner, I believe that it would be best fit somewhere around this area of the circle graph. It has good units and fodder, but it's a contender for one of the laziest banners of the book. Some things never really change, and you may be wondering to yourself, can they do even less than the bare minimum? To which I say, yeah, maybe. This banner may be really lazy in its unit design and gimmicks. That's it, it's just lazy. That said, because most of these units are working off their previous versions, they're going to be good. Byleth is another take on Brave and Fallen, and because she shares most of their effects, she's going to be as effective at minimum. The addition of Vantage is also pretty good for her role since she can't be as easily approached. I think it'll work out. Ike is harmonic but barely different, so if you need another infantry tank to sit there and tank, then he'll be as effective probably. It's more or less the same reasoning as Byleth to a lesser degree. Tharja at least has different enough support for her to stand out from her attuned. Her ability to let allies special spam is really nice, and she still has her own combat niche with disabling specials. She's definitely the most notable upgrade. And Eikthynir is actually unique, but isn't anything all that special. That said, he's a stat 6 support unit in a demote, so it can only be so bad. But overall, it kind of feels like the last seasonal banner where these units only really matter if you didn't have their previous versions, albeit to a slightly less offensive degree. At least Eikthynir is unique enough, but I can't imagine you'll really care that much since most of their previous iterations still work. The fodder is at least decent, if nothing else, although the same thing could be said about the previous summer banner, and it'll be around for a while longer too if you want to wait and see what else is coming up. Besides that, the Jormungandr banner is also currently active, and it's also full of a really good fodder. It's also really good for catching up on some units, but unit strength wise, the upcoming banner is definitely where it's at. It's boring, but they're still really good. However, if you don't care about that, then I just save the orbs TBH, 2BH, to be quite H. I can't wait to see these units come back next book, and guess what they're gonna do? The same thing again, but slightly better.
Everyday training is vital for anyone who wields a weapon.